Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal and welcome to the start of another week, another quiet week, unfortunately, for Arsenal. Real shame that after what felt like such a long time away, building up to the Crystal Palace game, you come back, you win nicely, you want to get going again, but you got a 10-day break until your next game. So it's going to be another quiet week on the Arsenal front. But I suppose they've only got themselves to blame because had they beaten Liverpool and not missed a load of chances in that game, then they'd be facing up to an FA Cup match this weekend. Instead, they are at London Colney facing up to a week worth of training. Not heading to Dubai, of course, unlike last time. So they're going to have to get used to the cold weather once again rather than heading off to sunnier climes for this little break. Mikel Arteta saying after the game at the weekend that it was very much going to be focused on just what sort of getting everyone ready, fully fit again, and a lot of game preparation time as well. So you would hope on the back of that they are going to be very well prepared to play at Nottingham Forest on Tuesday. Don't think Forest are playing either this weekend, or are they? Yes, they are. I think they probably are actually because they beat Blackpool, didn't they, in the FA Cup? So they will be playing this weekend. So maybe that's going to be an advantage for Arsenal ahead of the game against Forest on Tuesday night. Bit to talk about today. We'll have a look at the injuries, of course, to not Jorginho. What am I talking about? To Declan Rice and to Gabriel. Obviously not heard yet in terms of the full extent of what those injuries are, but we'll look at what they could mean for Arsenal and what might have to happen if they are out for any significant amount of time. Fingers crossed that is not the case. We'll look at what David Raya has had to say. He's been speaking after the game at the weekend. Got plenty of questions and comments from you. But I wanted to start today's show on obviously one of my favourite topics, and that is Emile Smith Rowe. Now, before you all switch off and get bored of me talking about Emile Smith Rowe saying he needs to get minutes again, I am going to say that, but I want to look at it more in more context, kind of on the back of his performance at the weekend, him coming back, him getting some decent minutes for once, good sort of half an hour on the pitch. He's come in for a lot of praise since that game for the little cameo that he produced. I don't think it was anything groundbreaking what he did, but I thought it was good. It was positive. He was intent when he was on the ball. But just in terms of looking at his future, I thought that's what I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about today, because this is a really crucial time for Smith Rowe when it comes to Arsenal and his future. It's not too dissimilar, really, to where he was last season when he came back halfway through the season from an injury and just really wanted to prove himself. He wasn't given enough minutes to actually prove himself last season. Hopefully that changes this season, and he is given a lot of minutes. And I thought it was a positive sign at the weekend that he came on, that he was given a good sort of, I think he came on about 65 minutes with injury time. That added up to about half an hour. And he was the first substitute came on with someone else, didn't he? I thought it was Gabby Martinelli, him came on first. And I thought that was a positive sign that straight away, when Mikel made his first changes, he turned to Smith Rowe. And I thought that was a good sign. And that he's got so much to offer. I really do think he has. And so many of you have been in touch and have been sort of having your say. Just a couple of comments. Here's one from B-Bay Boy NYC. So Smith Rowe is bulked up and he's lost none of his silk. On his first touch, he was surrounded by 3 Palace players and still kept the ball safe. He was everywhere on that left-hand side. Massive error not to give him more game time and a catastrophe to let him go. I don't think Arteta will recover with Arsenal fans if he takes Smith Rowe out of the equation. For me, he would lose a huge amount of my vote of confidence that I have been unwavering in so far. Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of feel the same way when it comes to Smith Rowe. I mean, the cheer that he got when he came on at the weekend, it's the loudest cheer of the day. And that tends to be the way when he does come on. I mean, just the cheer you heard when you could see Mikel Arteta signal for him to come back from the warm-up, from him warming up down the touchline. It just says a lot. He's so popular amongst the Arsenal fan base and they want to see more of him. And, what you're saying there, I think a lot of people feel the same. And I do think it would be, catastrophe is maybe a strong word because this is football at the end of the day. People do leave the club. And sometimes if you're not in favour with the manager or the manager has other ideas for a certain position, then you can move on. It does happen. And I don't think it necessarily has to be a catastrophe. I think it will be a real shame if he were to move on. But that's why I think these 6 months are so important, because I think ultimately he will have to move on if he doesn't get the minutes that he needs to impress. And that is going to be a real shame, I think. At the moment, when it comes to Smith Rowe, Arsenal are very unwavering in their stance on him. They were in the summer when he sat down with the club, with his agent, and it was made very clear to him and them that he was not going to go anywhere in the summer, that Arsenal very much felt he was still part of the plans and that he was going to have a big part to play over the first half of the season. Obviously, and there have been a couple of injuries, but obviously he didn't really get too many minutes over the first half of the season to sort of back up those words that Arsenal gave him. But still, right now in January, again, the message from Arsenal is very much the same, that they want him to stay. That was made very, very clear at the end of last week when West Ham came tentatively knocking to inquire about a loan deal. Arsenal had absolutely no interest in that. They want to keep Smith Rowe. And from Smith Rowe's point of view, he absolutely wants to stay at Arsenal for now. He's all in for now until the end of the season. He doesn't want to think about going anywhere. He's so determined, as far as I'm aware, to force his way into Mikel Arteta's plans again and get himself back into the starting 11. That will have to be reassessed come the summer if he hasn't been given any minutes and he's not looking like he's getting anywhere near the first team, because he'll have 2 years left on his contract. And from an Arsenal point of view, you think, well, what's the point in keeping him? I've spoken about that before. But from a Smith Rowe point of view as well, it's like he can't just waste his career. He can't just stay here forever if he's not getting any game time. He doesn't want to go, and it will be a huge emotional wrench should he have to go. But I think ultimately what these next 6 months or whatever it is, 4 months until the end of season, is going to really shape what happens with Smith Rowe's future. If Arteta shows that he's going to get minutes and he's still, considered part of the plans. And I'm not talking about starting every single game. I don't think any player can expect that. Even the likes of Bukayo Saka and people like that shouldn't expect that. But just that he's wanted and that he's being turned to, that he is being used, that he is starting games, some games, that he is getting more than 2 minutes at the end of matches, almost a pity substitution. He needs to be part of the plans. And if that's not the case, then he'll have to reassess in the future. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see what Arsenal do, because we know they do need to sell some players. They need to bring some money in. And Smith Rowe is a very sellable player. We've seen from the interest in him just this window that clubs are interested in Smith Rowe. He's a very, very good player, a very talented player. Only have 2 years left on his contract in the summer. And so there is going to be a decision made. I just really hope that these next 4 months he can get himself in the team, or get himself closer to being in the team and actually feel like a key member of the squad, and that he stays, because I do think, like you say there at the top, it will be a real shame. Catastrophe, I still feel maybe is a bit much, because players do go in football, and it does happen, and sides move on. And if he goes, then good luck to him. I really hope he does well, but hopefully he does stay for me. Alan here down the bottom says he's tired of saying it and he's not on his own. And I know you're not on your own, but you say, please keep. Please play Smith Rowe and end the Havertz worship. Havertz for 65 million is a disaster. Don't compound it by keep on playing him. Again, I don't look at Havertz as a 65 million disaster. I think Havertz has been fine. He's not been brilliant by any means. He's not been great by any means, but he's been fine. He's not been a disaster. We're not talking Willian levels of signings here, although of course Willian was free. Havertz is 65 million, which is a lot of money that could have been spent. Definitely could have been spent elsewhere on a player who was certainly ready to make more of an impact this season and suited to that role that he's playing in. Havertz is a gamble. There's no doubt about it. He's a project almost, because you're having to play him in a position he's never played before. And that's a big gamble when you're spending £65 million on a player to do that, especially when you're replacing a player who was so crucial to Arsenal's system in Granit Xhaka last season. But I still think there's a place for Kai Havertz here and Smith Rowe. And, for me, I think Kai Havertz's best position, certainly from what I've seen from him in an Arsenal shirt so far, is up front, central striker, false nine, whatever you want to call it. And so you can have the two of them on the same pitch together. But I really do hope what we saw at the weekend from Smith Rowe against Palace is the start of him getting some proper minutes and proper opportunities over the second half of the season. It'll be interesting to see who plays against Notts Forest. I suggest it'll be Havertz. I don't think Smith Rowe is going to immediately force his way into the team because of that cameo at the weekend. But it was a start, and hopefully it's just it is a start, and we don't go back to suddenly seeing him get 2 minutes here and there from now on. But love to get your views on it, of course, in the comments below. Please do let me know what you think of Smith Rowe and his future, and what happens over the next 6 months. What do you think should happen come the summer from his point of view, from Arsenal's point of view? Please do let me know in the comments below. Okay, moving on to Declan Rice and Gabriel. Now, Arsenal were waiting to find out the extent of these injuries. There's been a scan, or there will be a scan done on Declan Rice. I'm not sure if there'll need to be a scan on Gabriel. We'll have to wait and see how that emerges. But Declan Rice will see how bad this hamstring injury is and what the extent of it is. As I said yesterday, it's going to be a real shame if Declan Rice is out for any sort of significant period of time. Not least because he's just a fabulous footballer who Arsenal need, and he's really, really important. But also, it comes at a time when Thomas Partey is getting closer and closer to return. And I think we've all been really waiting eagerly to see how Declan Rice and Thomas Partey can kind of dovetail together in that Arsenal midfield. And with that Liverpool game coming up really, really quickly now, you want Declan Rice fit. You do not want him missing that game. And it'll be interesting if he is out, say he's out for 6 weeks, and this is just hypothetical, and hopefully that is not going to be the case. But if he is out for 6 weeks, how Arsenal deal with being without Declan Rice for a long chunk of time. We haven't had to see that yet this season. If Thomas Partey is fit, then you think, Thomas Partey will come in, be that holding midfielder in the Declan Rice role, and then you can play whatever you do ahead of him. Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, Emile Smith Rowe, Martin Odegaard, Fabio Vieira, if he comes back. Can you play Thomas Partey and Jorginho together in that midfield too? Like, I think you definitely can play Thomas Partey and Declan Rice together, or Jorginho and Declan Rice together, because he can play Rice in that number 8 role and he can play it very, very well. I'm not sure you can play Jorginho and Thomas Partey together. And that would be my worry if Declan Rice is out for any significant amount of time. Even if Thomas Partey does come back, I think that midfield is going to struggle with those two in it. I just don't think they suit each other's game perfectly. And I don't know who plays in that 8 role. Jorginho, probably. But so, yeah, I wouldn't be too overly keen on that. And I think Arsenal would have to really work things out if Declan Rice is out for a long period of time. But fingers crossed he's not. We'll wait for the scan results on Declan. I'm sure they will emerge in the next couple of days. Gabriel, you would hope that he's going to be fine. He didn't look in too much pain. He got the injury in the first half on his knee. He carried on for a fair while. He seemed like he was okay. Eventually went off at 3-0 with the game over. And you would hope that is nothing more than Arsenal just taking things easy with him. Jakub Kiwior came on, looked fine. I mean, it was nice to see Kiwior playing in his actual position for once, rather than playing and struggling out of position at left back. I mean, he had nothing to do by that time he came on, so you can't really read too much into how Kiwior performed. He was fine, as I said, did nothing wrong. Looked very comfortable, but it was as comfortable 20 minutes work as you're ever going to get in a Premier League match, really, for Jakub Kiwior. But it would be a big blow again. These are two, especially with the Liverpool game. And Liverpool looked very good yesterday. I know Liverpool missing players. First half was pretty even against Bournemouth, but then the second half, Liverpool's strength is in their attack. They can score from everywhere. Even with Mo Salah out, you've got Jota. He's just a brilliant player. Jota, absolutely fabulous. Darwin Núñez, absolute handful, scores goals, creates goals. I know people get on Darwin Núñez's back, but I really don't understand it. I think he's such a good player. I think he's just going to get better and better for Liverpool as well. Yes, he misses chances, but he causes absolute chaos in and around the penalty area. And I think he's a really good player, and he showed that again yesterday. Gakpo, they've just got goals throughout that team, and that's their strength. And Arsenal are going to need everyone when that Liverpool game comes around, because of the little deficit they've got now, 5 points behind them. It just really feels like a very much a must-win game. Certainly not a must not. It's certainly a must not lose game, but it's beginning to feel like a must-win game for Arsenal, in their hopes of getting back competing towards the very top of the table with Liverpool and Manchester City. And you want these two players right in the heart of it for a game like that. So fingers crossed we get some good news on those two in the coming days. All right, David Raya has been speaking after the game. I thought he played well at the weekend, David Raya, and he was speaking after the game in terms of how he settled, continuing to settle, and how Arsenal felt after the trip to Dubai and the victory at the weekend. He said, I think you need time to adapt to a new team, new club, new facilities, and new demands. This is him talking about how he's feeling at Arsenal right now. He said, it's not easy, but I think I'm finding my feet and I'm finding myself now. It is really important for everybody to win the game. And of course, I am feeling part of the team. And like I said, I thought he played well at the weekend. He wasn't amazing by any means. He just saved everything that he had to save, and his distribution was very, very good. And that obviously led to Arsenal's third goal, could have led to another goal before that. And yeah, I thought it was a really positive performance from David Raya. I think David Raya's been good since he's come to Arsenal. He's made a couple of mistakes, mainly with his feet, that have been quite highly publicised because of the situation he finds himself in and the battle with Aaron Ramsdale. And everyone can have their thoughts on who should be in goal for Arsenal and whether Arteta really needed to make this decision. But I think when you actually sort of break it down, how David Raya's done, he's done fine I think. Has there been a massive improvement that has proven Arteta right to make such a big decision that was seen as pretty disruptive at the time? Probably not. And I think everyone who supports Aaron Ramsdale will point to that. But I think when David Raya plays well, it's right to praise him. When he doesn't play well, it's right to sort of criticise him, just as we criticise Aaron Ramsdale when he doesn't play well, or praise him when he does play well, as I thought he did against Liverpool. Sort of going on with his comments, David Raya, he said, look, in a season, you always get bad periods, and every team has bad periods. We went through a tricky period that last few weeks, so we got our feedback and we won the game at the weekend against Palace. I think we needed a win like this. The way we played, the way we scored the goals, the way we defended, we think the whole match was superb. Obviously, there are things we have to improve as always, but I think the game overall was really good. So the main thing was that 3 points. I think we fully deserved to win. And the players and the staff will be really delighted with that win. I know a lot of people have looked at it and said, oh, it was 5-0, but it was scrappy, which I suppose it is, but it's 5-0. And honestly, if you can't be happy after winning 5-0, I don't know how, when you're ever going to be happy in the world of football. It'd be lovely to play sparkling football and win 5-0 every week, but it doesn't happen. Unless, well, not even, it doesn't even happen. I mean, this is Crystal Palace team that Manchester City drew 2-2 against a few weeks ago at the Etihad. So as bad as Palace are at the moment, they can still cause problems, and they still just took 2 points off Manchester City at home not long ago. And Arsenal just drubbed them 5-0, and there's still lots of complaining, but you're never going to stop complaining, I suppose, when it comes to football. But fair play to David Raya. I mean, a lot of people, like Paul here, saying, why are we getting carried away with Raya after this game when an underplayed Ramsdale had a great game against Liverpool? I don't think anyone's getting carried away. I don't see who's getting carried away. I think people have just said he's played well. I think it's fair to say you've played well. Someone's played well. That's not someone having a go at Aaron Ramsdale or saying that Mikel Arteta's proven right or this is a transfer that should have been made. It's just saying he played well. I haven't seen anything else than that, and I haven't seen people really getting carried away by the performance. He didn't have much to do. It was just everything he did do, he did well, and that was fair to point out, I think. But Kevin here says that not the first time Martinelli came off the bench and scored. Next time starting, he'll be smooth as he frequently does. Then says Odegaard was not in his best. No, I don't think Odegaard was at his best at the weekend. Yeah, Martinelli's an interesting one. At this stage last season, or a little bit later than this stage last season, I remember he lost his place in the team. He was struggling for goals a little bit, and he lost his place in the team. Trossard came in and started. Remember, there was a game at Aston Villa, the 4-2, when Jorginho's shot came down in the last minute, hit Martinez on the back and went in. And then Martinelli had come on as a sub in that game against Villa, and he scored the fourth goal, didn't he, on the breakaway when Martinez had gone up for a corner. And that was his first goal in a while, and he'd been struggling for form, and people have been saying he should be out of the team. And then he scored that goal, and then he was back in the team after that, and he went on a brilliant run, scored about 9 goals or something like that. Hopefully this can be the same sort of thing for him, because he's been struggling for form, he's been struggling for confidence in front of goal. And those 2 goals could do him the world of good, and we could see a very similar scenario to what we saw last season when he was struggling. And so I'm just getting a message that I needed to look at. And hopefully he can repeat that this season. And if he doesn't, it's going to be great for Arsenal, because a fit and firing and a confident Gabriel Martinelli just makes his Arsenal team so much more of a threat and so much better in the final third. Here's one from L1N Dean. It says, hi, Charles. I think Jorginho is hugely underrated by a significant section of the Arsenal fan base. I agree. I thought Arsenal lost a degree of control they enjoyed against Liverpool when he was taken off. And while he does lack a bit of pace, his use of the ball is generally immaculate. The pass he played to release Martinelli for the 5th goal was a good example, but not an isolated one. Of his ability to spot space and exploit it with inch-perfect passing. Very useful player to have around the squad. I couldn't agree more at all with everything you said. I think he's very underrated. I think he's been a really good signing for Arsenal. I think he's still a really good player. I think whenever he plays, he does well. And I thought it was great when he came on against Palace. He got the assist as well, but just his all-round game when he came on, I thought he was really good in that game against Liverpool when he started. And I said in the build-up to the Liverpool game, I thought he'd been underused a little bit so far this season. And I still think he's got a really big part to play. And so, yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%. Here's one from Brian. He says, what are your thoughts on Eze? Anytime I see him, I'm impressed. Would he work in the Arsenal system, maybe left 8, or is he more of a number 10, which Arsenal don't play so much anymore? Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, I really like Eze. I was sitting there. We are sitting next to James Ollie from ESPN at the weekend in the press box watching the game, and we were talking about him. And someone's going to sign him up. Someone's going to snap him up very, very quickly. He's a really good player, really talented player. He's got all the quality to be a player for a top club. Look, whether that be Arsenal, I don't know. Does he fit into the Arsenal system? Does he defensively? Is he Is he on it enough to do what Mikel Arteta would ask of a player like that? I don't know. But look, when you've got a player who's as good as that, who's as talented as that, who can do things off the cuff, who can cause teams as many problems as he can, then I think he's good enough for any team. And I think he will walk into a top 6 team, a top 4 team very, very soon, just like Magalhaes will do. You know, does he fit into that number 8 role? I don't know if you can play him and Odegaard together. That's one thing I would say. I think that would leave Arsenal very much reliant on Declan Rice or whoever it is. You know, for all Havertz's struggles at times this season to really making an impression in the attacking third, you cannot fault what he does off the ball and how important it is to Arsenal off the ball. His defensive work, his ability to win the ball back and press. Would Eze do that? I don't know. And that's not saying that Arsenal shouldn't go for a player like him, because maybe that's what Arsenal need, is more of an X factor type player who can just do things like that can just open a team up. And maybe that's what Arsenal's struggling a little bit with this season. I mean, that's up to Mikel Arteta to decide ultimately, because he's the manager. But look, I think he's a really good player, really talented, and I'd like to see him at Arsenal, no doubt, just as I'd like to see Magalhaes at Arsenal. Here's one from Hampstead Owl. Says, on the discounting of set pieces, yes, of course they all count equally, but I think you also have to fact that people want to be entertained by the team. The Trossard Martinelli goals were all fun to watch. The Gabriel ones, not so much, especially the second one, which is a massive bodies in the box, just popping the ball into the net. If the goal has to be unpicked using slow motion replays, it is not such a great footballing experience. Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. In fact, I don't think I do agree with that. Yeah, look, we all want to see Jack Wilshere versus Norwich type goals, and we all want to purr about them. We all want to watch replays of how good they are. We all want to see thrilling counter-attacking goals like we saw for Trossard at the weekend. Yes, I understand that. But a goal is a goal, and I will celebrate a goal no matter how it goes in. Declan Rice's goal against Manchester United when he scored towards the end of the season, when he took it down from the corner and then it took about 2 deflections and went in. I celebrated that as much as I've celebrated any goal for a long, long time. It was still a great footballing experience, albeit because of the time and what it meant and who it was against. But, and when you say the Trossard Martinelli goals were fun to watch, Gabriel ones were not. The first one I thought was a great goal to watch. That was a proper centre-back coming in from a corner, climbing about 8 foot in the air and thumping a header into the bottom corner. That's a proper football goal. Yes, there needs to be a balance. You can't just be scoring from set pieces, and Arsenal aren't just scoring from set pieces. They're scoring quite a bit from set pieces, but the majority of their goals are still from open play. And so, yeah, I'm not sure I agree. I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying 100%, but I still think, football has always been... I grew up watching George Graham's team with Steve Bold at the front post, flicking on a corner for Smudger coming in at the back post, or Tony Adams coming in at the back post to thump a header in and score. I grew up on those teams and I loved watching those goals go in, and I celebrated all of them as much as I celebrated pretty much any other goal that I saw for Arsenal at the time. Set pieces have always been a key part of football and will always be a key part of football. And I think they're equally as important. Well, they are equally as important because they mean the same thing. They mean a goal at the end of the day. But I do understand what you're saying there. And just quickly here, one from Adam, who asked about Callum Wilson, long-time subscriber, first-time commenter. Good to get you involved, Adam. He said, is it feasible that Arsenal could sign Callum Wilson, a much cheaper option than Tony and a proven PL goal scorer? Say we could get him for 8 to 12 million 1 year with an option contract. He scores 10 goals and win us the league. I like Callum Wilson. Is it feasible? I don't think so. Well, I know that Newcastle said he's not for sale this window anyway, same as they said to Kieran Trippier amid those links with Bayern Munich. But I don't know. You say 8 to 12 million, but then you have to add his contract, his wages onto the top of that for a player who, he is a proven goal scorer, but he is getting on a bit now, and he just feels like a bit of a space filler. Which there is a time and a place for that. I thought Jorginho kind of was that last season when he came in, and he's done very well. And as I've just said, I think it's really, really underrated and still got lots to offer. But I'm not sure Callum Wilson comes in and scores 10 goals and wins Arsenal the league if he comes in now. So no, not for me, Adam. But thank you very much for getting involved, and I hope that won't be the only time you comment on one of the videos. Please do continue to get involved. All right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time, as always. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you want me to discuss, to comment on, please do just hit me up in the comments below. Give me your opinion, your question, anything like that, and get involved in tomorrow's show. Until then, everyone, have a good day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.